All right, day 7. This is really just like day 6. This is more practice of factoring a polynomial if we're given one factor or 1 0. So please understand, we're given the factor of x plus 2. Okay, that's great and all. But the root is the same thing as a 0, by the way. Those are synonyms. So the root that goes with the factor of x plus 2 is negative 2. All right? Because that's what we would get if I took x plus 2 and I set it equal to 0 and solved it. Okay, I would get x equals negative 2. So it's the root or the 0 that we put in the box when we do our synthetic division. So just make sure that you don't put positive 2. Make sure you're putting negative 2 in this box. Now the coefficients are 1, negative 5, negative 2, and 24. Okay, so with that in mind, I will continue. So I bring down the 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Put these together, you get negative 7. Multiply here, you get 14. Add them, you get 12. Multiply, you get negative 24, and you get 0. You better get 0. If I turn this back into a polynomial, I have x squared minus 7x plus 12. All right. Now, again, we were given this factor of x plus 2, but I'm going to bring it back in the front now because we're trying to factor. Okay, but then we have to keep on going and factor this trinomial if possible. So x squared would factor as x times x. 12, well, okay, 12 is either going to be, it's either going to be 3 times 4, or 2 times 6, or 1 times 12. It's going to be one of those. Based on the fact that I see the negative 7, I'm going to try the 3 times 4 option. Understand that I'm talking about inner and outer. So to make negative 7, both of these would have to be negative. So that means both of these will be negative. Luckily, a negative times negative is a positive, so that works. Okay, so now I have indeed factored completely. Oh, I meant for that to be blue. Try to match things up, keep it in sync as much as I can. So this is the factored form of this original cubic polynomial. Here's 3. Okay, so we had here x minus 3 and x minus 4. Okay, so the root that we will get from x minus 3 is positive 3, and we will get a positive 4 from x minus 4. All right, so far so good. That's number 1. Here we go again. This factor of x plus 5 gives us a root of negative 5. So the coefficients are 1, negative 1, negative 21, and 45. Okay, bring down the 1. So 1 times negative 5, add them up, multiply. So that'll be 9, multiply, that's negative 45, and I get 0. Turning this back into a polynomial, I have x squared minus 6x plus 9. Alright, if I bring back the factor that gave me negative 5, alright, that was x plus 5, it's right there. But we can factor this further, can we not? All right, x squared is x times x. 9, I'm going to go with 3 times 3. If these were both negative, that will give me negative 6. But if I multiply them, I get positive 9. So kabam, I factored it. So now the factored form, this is the factored form right here. Okay, so we have the x plus 5 that we were originally given, plus now we got these two x minus 3's. Okay, so as we saw, the root that we get from x plus 5 is negative 5. Now the roots that we get from x minus 3 will be positive 3. Now you really shouldn't write it twice like this, all right, 3 and 3. That's redundant, all right. We're listing what we have, and we have negative 5 and 3. Listing it again is not it's not the proper way to do it. But there is valuable information because we're looking for 3 roots. We saw that it was third power. So it would be helpful to note that this one is a double root. All right, so I'm just going to point at it and say double. So that lets me know that it has multiplicity 2. If I looked at a graph, there'd be a bounce right here because this is a double root. And that way I know this really counts twice, and then I have my third one, so I do have all 3. All right, if you do list it twice, I'm not going to mark it wrong, but it's just not proper. Okay, here we go again. Number 5. The factor of x minus 6 translates into a root of 6, positive 6. Coefficients 1, negative 3, negative 16, and negative 12. Okay. So let's bring down that 1. 1 times 6 is 6. Together that makes 3. 3 times 6 is 18. That makes 2. 2 times 6 is 12. That makes 0. Turning it back into a trinomial, I have x squared plus 3x plus 2. All right. And I should bring down the factor of x minus 6 that comes from this 0 that came from this factor that we were given in the first place. And then I should continue factoring. So I will have x and x, and 2 can only be 2 times 1. And let me guess, plus and plus. All right, because 2x and 1x would make 3x. And 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, so these are the factors. This is the factored form. Okay. And then the roots that come from these are, whoops, that's a negative 6, so the root will be positive 6, and then negative 2, and then negative 1. All right, so that is it for number 5. Okay, number 7. This minus 8 is going to translate into a 0 or a root of positive 8. And then the coefficients. All right, bring down the 1. Times 8 is 8. That's going to be negative 3. Multiply, you get negative 24. Put these together, that's negative 10. Negative 10 times 8 is negative 80. Alright, which of course makes 0. Turning this back into a trinomial is going to give me x squared minus 3x minus 10. We should probably bring back this factor of x minus 8. Alright, that goes with that 0. But we will need to factor this to find the other zeros. So this will factor x squared is x times x. 10, it's either 2 times 5 or 1 times 10. I'm thinking 2 times 5 because I'm looking at this negative 3. Let's see. If I have a positive 2 and a negative 5, that will give me negative 3. Okay, and a positive times a negative is a negative. So there, that's how you factor it. Okay, so these are the factors, and the roots. I've got my positive 8 and my negative 2 and my positive 5. Okay, that was number 7. All right, looking at number 9. Now, notice the subtle difference here. On all the previous problems so far, we were given factors, like x minus 8. You know, it's a factor. We often put it in parentheses. But here, we're not given a factor. It's not x minus 4. We're given the 0 itself. All right, x equals 4. So when I go to do my synthetic division, I'm not going to do the opposite of this or anything. Like, this is the number that I'm going to use. So there you go. So I will have 2 and 3 and negative 39 and negative 20. All right, bringing down the 2. So 2 times 4 is 8. That's 11. 11 times 4 is 44. That's 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Of course, we get 0. I could turn this back into a trinomial by making it 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. All right, at this point, I should bring down my factor from the 4, which was actually the x minus 4. Oh, okay, I forgot this time they didn't give us a factor. So yeah, from this 0, we get a factor of x minus 4. But then we keep going. So let's see, 2x squared will factor as 2x and x. 5 can only factor as 1 times 5, but it matters where I put what. But let's take a look at the 1 times 5 option. Remember, the inner plus the outer has to equal the middle. Right now, inner, I have 1x. Outer, I have 10x. I'm trying to get positive 11. That will work out if I just do plus and plus. So plus and plus. Plus, positive times a positive is a positive, so that's looking good. So that's how you factor that. So just bring down your x minus 4, and you're done. Okay, so these are my factors, and I will now turn those into my zeros. So x minus 4 came from a 0 of positive 4. That's the one we were given in the first place. But this is going to give me a 0 of negative 1/2. I'm getting that by taking 2x plus 1 and setting it equal to 0, like this. All right, then I would divide both sides by 2. So that's how I got the negative 1/2. All right, and this is going to give me negative 5. Okay. So that was number 9. All right, number 10. Okay, so the negative 2, we just use it as is, not the opposite or anything. And we've got 9, 10, negative 17, negative 2. Nine times negative 2 is negative 18. Put these together, that's negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16. Together, that's negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2, which makes 0. Now, turning this back into a trinomial looks like this. 9x squared minus 8x minus 1. Let's go ahead and bring down the factor, which is x plus 2. But we have to keep going. 9x squared. It could be 9x and 1x, but it might be 3x times 3x. So I'm going to try that first and see how far I get. You know what? I can already tell this is not going to work out, because this would make only 1 times 1 could be 1. And that means inner I have 3x and outer I have 3x. But that only can make a 6, not an 8. So how about new? Alright, well if 3 and 3 didn't work, that means it must be 9 and 1. Like 9x times x could be 9x squared. Well, let's see. Inner, now I have 1x. Outer, I now have 9x. I'm trying to get negative 8 middle. So if this is a negative 9 and a positive 1, that will make negative 8. The positive 1 is this guy, because that's inner. The negative 9 would have to come from this guy, because that's outer. And a positive times a negative is a negative, so we have factored it correctly. Okay, so bringing down the x plus 2, these are the factors. Wow, that didn't even fit. It's crazy. There we go. Okay, so those are the factors. And so this factor would give me a 0 of negative 2. Of course, I had that from the beginning. But this factor will give me a 0 of negative 1 over 9. And this one will give me a 0 of positive 1. And once again, this negative 1 over 9 comes from taking this and setting it equal to 0. So really, I went 9x plus 1 equals 0. I subtracted 1 on both sides. And then I divide it. So that's how I got x equals negative 1 over 9. Alright, I'm losing my voice, guys. I only got 3 hours of sleep last night at most. And this tea is not helping as much as it usually does. So I apologize for the sleepy voice, but what are you going to do? So once again, we have negative 7. So that goes in the box just like it is. And coefficients, 1, negative 3, negative 45, 175. That's a big number. All right. Bring down the 1. 1 times negative 7. That makes negative 10. Negative 10 times negative 7. 70. I think this is 25. And 25 times negative 7 is negative 175. That makes 0. So back into a trinomial, we have x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, let's go ahead and bring down the factor that is associated with negative 7. That would be x plus 7. And then we have to keep factoring. X squared, that's x times x. 25, that is 5 times 5. If we make it a negative and a negative, that makes negative 5 inner and negative 5 outer. That makes negative 10 middle. And a negative times negative is a positive, so it's good. Okay, bring down your x plus 7, and these are your factors. Okay, and this came from a 0 of negative 7. This factor goes with a positive 5. And this also gives me a positive 5. Again, I am not going to write it twice. That's redundant. It's repetitive. I've already got the 5 listed. So instead of writing it twice, just write a note saying that it is a double. All right? That's how you show that it counts twice. Okay, that was it for number 11. Okay, looks like this is the last one. All right, last problem. One more. Okay, we have a 0 of 8. So 8 goes in the box. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I've got 15, negative 119. Huh, big number. Negative 10, 16. Bring down the 15. Kabam. 15 times 8. You know what? I don't know that off the top of my head. It's 120. So there's 120. All right, put those together. That's 1. 1 times 8 is 8. Together, that makes negative 2. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16, which does, in fact, make 0. Putting this back as a trinomial would be 15x squared plus x minus 2. All right, this 0 of 8 would come from a factor of x minus 8. All right, now we just have to factor this further. All right, I'm betting this 15 is going to factor as 3x and 5x. The other option was 1 and 15, but I'm doubting that one. 2 can only be 2 times 1. So it matters whether we put the 1 here and the 2 here or the other way around. We'll just have to check it. And the way we check it is we look at the inner and the outer, and we make sure it matches the middle. So inner, right now I have 5x. Outer, I have 6x. Alright, I'm trying to get 1x. You know, a positive 1x is what I have here in the middle. The only way I can get a positive 1x out of this is if I have a negative 5 and a positive 6. That would do it. Alright, the negative 5 is part of the inner, so that comes from that. The positive 6 came from outer, so that comes from this 2 being positive. So that's what those signs would have to be. So this is looking good. And a negative 1 times positive 2 is a negative 2. We always have to check that as well. So we factored it. Okay, let's just bring down that x minus 8. And this is the factored form. Okay, so there are the factors. Alright, this factor is associated with a 0 of 8. This factor, and that's the one we were given, but we list it anyway. This factor comes from, would give us a 0 of 1/3, and this factor would give us a 0 of negative 2/5. I'm going to go ahead and show these two. They came from, if I do 3x minus 1 equals 0, and if I do 5x plus 2 equals 0, I set these factors equal to 0 and solve. So I would do plus 1, that would give me 3x equals 1, and then I would divide by 3. So I would have x equals 1/3. That's where the 1/3 came from. Similarly, I would subtract 2 from both sides. I would have 5x equals negative 2, and then I would divide. And that will give me x equals negative 2/5. Alright, that's where that came from. Okay, that is it for this practice session. I meant to tell you to make sure you're watching this without a pencil in your hand, or a pen, but I forgot. So, make sure you can do these on your own without just copying me. I hope it was helpful. See you on the next video.